80%. That is not the amount of steel in a suit of royal plate armor. It is not the weight. It is not the coverage. 80% is how much of the final price went to one single step, polishing, just rubbing the metal until it shone like a mirror. The actual steel underneath was almost an afterthought in the budget. A 15th century king could spend the modern equivalent of $3.5 million on a suit of armor, and most of that fortune was burned on making it look pretty. In the spring of 1441, an English knight named Sir John Cressy settled his account for a Milanese harness, what we would call a full suit of plate armor. The ledger entry is brief, almost clinical: 8 pounds, 6 shillings, and 8 pence, written in the currency of the day, where a single pound equaled 20 shillings, and each shilling was 12 pence. The receipt itself survives in the British Library, its faded ink confirming the transaction. This was not a custom commission, but a ready-made harness imported from Milan, the gold standard for armor at the time. The document does not break down the charges or explain how much went to labor, materials, or finishing. It simply records the total sum, an unambiguous price written in the hand of a 15th century clerk. To understand what that figure really meant, we need to translate it into something more familiar. 8 pounds, 6 shillings, and 8 pence. On paper, that's just a number. In the world of 15th century England, it carried a very tangible weight. During Henry V's campaigns, a professional man-at-arms earned 1 shilling for each day of active service. At that rate, Sir John Cressy's harness represented the equivalent of 160 days' wages, more than 5 months of continuous combat pay. For a typical fighting household, this wasn't a casual purchase. It meant committing the better part of a year's income, not including the cost of a horse, weapons, or daily living. The price of armor wasn't measured only in coins, but in the long, grinding work of a soldier's life, day after day, shilling by shilling, until the sum matched the gleam of Milanese steel. In Westphalia's Iserlohn region, price lists from the mid-15th century tell a surprising story. A mail shirt, once the standard for soldiers across Europe, was listed at 4.59 florins. A basic suit of plate armor, the new arrival on the battlefield, cost just 4.33 florins. For the first time, plate undercut mail, reversing centuries of military economics. The reason wasn't just a change in taste or fashion. From 1347 to 1353, the Black Death swept through Europe, wiping out as much as half the population. Skilled metalworkers vanished, and wages soared. The labor-intensive art of linking thousands of mail rings became a luxury fewer could afford. At the same time, new water-powered hammers and early blast furnaces made it possible to shape and finish large steel plates with fewer hands in less time. As a result, the price of raw steel dropped, and the cost to produce plate armor fell with it. This inversion didn't just lower prices, it changed who could afford protection on the battlefield. In northern Italy around 1380, water-powered trip hammers thundered in armory towns, pounding red-hot steel into shape with a force that once took teams of men. Blast furnaces followed, flooding the market with affordable steel. Yet, as machines took over the heavy lifting, a new bottleneck formed. The time saved in forging was swallowed up by the finishing process, especially polishing. Experimental archaeology and the time logs of modern masters like Robert McPherson, Geoffrey Wasson, and Peter Fuller reveal a striking pattern. More than 2/3 of a harness's total build time goes to polishing alone. McPherson records 30 hours of polishing for every 15 hours spent forging and assembling. Wasson and Fuller report similar ratios. Achieving the flawless, mirror-bright surface demanded by knights and nobles meant days of hand-rubbing with fine abrasives, often by specialized polishers working in dedicated shops. The steel itself had become cheap, the gleam was expensive. In the end, it was not the metal, but the labor of finishing that defined the true cost of a knight's armor. At the bottom were rough munition-grade harnesses, no frills, thin plates, barely polished, selling for as little as 5 pounds. About the price of a reliable Toyota today. The standard knight's harness, like Sir John Cressy's, cost 8 to 10 pounds, a range that lines up with a new BMW. For kings and princes, the price soared to 12 or even 15 pounds, custom-fitted and gilded, the medieval equivalent of a Ferrari. The difference was not just in the steel or the fit, but in the hours spent chasing a mirror finish, a shine that signaled status as much as protection. A full harness of plate armor weighed between 45 and 65 pounds, less than the gear carried by a modern infantry soldier, which often tops 60 pounds. Archaeological finds and preserved suits confirm these numbers, showing that the weight was distributed evenly from shoulders to shins. Unlike a single heavy backpack, plate armor moved with the body, allowing a trained fighter to run, vault onto a horse, or even perform somersaults. Modern reenactors in historically accurate harnesses sprint, climb stairs, and swing weapons without stumbling. The myth of the lumbering, helpless knight collapses under the evidence. A plate harness was heavy, but never a prison. Today, outfitting a soldier still drains resources and defines status. The price of protection shapes who fights and who survives. In every era, armor reveals what we value most. What do you think?